At first glance, the Team Trees and Team C's charities started by MrBeast seem successful. They reached their fundraising goals. I am making the case today that not only was that the only successful part of each of these charities, the mass attention brought to these movements by the likes of very big YouTubers like Mark Rober, who you see in the thumbnail, has overall negatively impacted our efforts to actually reduce global pollution. To better understand the second point that I'm making, let's take a look at the numbers and see how much impact each of these movements had. Team Trees successfully raised $20 million to plant 20 million trees in 56 days. At first glance, that's a really big number. Let's put that into perspective though. Just doing a quick Google search for the, stats of deforestation, 42 million trees are cut down each day, which equates to about 15.3 billion every year. In other words, the charity was able to raise $20 million to restore about half a day's worth of deforestation. Let's do a hypothetical for funsies. Let's say that the Team Trees effort was able to plant 10 million trees a month to keep up with what they did in 2. So that would be about 120 million trees a year. Compare that to the 15.3 billion lost in deforestation. That would equate to restoring about 0.7%, let's round up, 0.8% of the amount of trees that are lost every year. As you can see, even if we were to do it all year, it has truly less than 1% of change in restoring the impact of deforestation. Another point I considered was in regard to the, carbon removed and pollutants that are removed from the atmosphere due to these many trees being planted, which does appear to equate to, for the carbon emissions, 1.6 million tons of carbon removed. Very cool. Let's just take a look at the CO2 emissions from the United States in a year. That is 4,853,780,240 tons of CO2 emissions from the US alone. And again, if we go down that hypothetical and multiply it to what it would do in the year, being 16 million, it ends up being 0.3% of carbon emissions in total. Now, Team C's is actually going to be a lot quicker and a lot worse. Team C's was able to raise, 33 million, but, for the sake of rounding up, $30 million to remove 30 million pounds of marine debris from the ocean. That was done in about 2.5 years. But again, for the sake of the hypothetical, let's say that they were able to get rid of 10 million pounds of ocean debris every year. The ocean takes in about 33 billion pounds of plastic each year. So again, to go through that comparison, it would equate to about 0.03% of the ocean pollution was cleaned up. So now we understand on the statistics side how both of these movements have provided next to zero impact in each of the respective, pollution efforts. Cutting in for just a quick 10 seconds here, I'd really appreciate that if you like the content, you consider subscribing. And even if you don't want to, I just appreciate that you're watching the video. Thank you. We would like to think, and for years I was in the same boat, that we are able to make a difference when it comes to pollution, when it comes to stopping global warming. But the fact of the matter is, it's not up to us people making sure that we put the recycling in the recycling bin. It's companies, it's manufacturing, it's production of plastic. It is all of these huge businesses, these monopolies of production that are the main sources of pollution. And as much as we'd like to think that our efforts to reduce that pollution is going to be significant in any way, it isn't. I don't want to be cynical, but the numbers don't lie. The general public's perception of pollution, of recycling, is that we somehow can make an impact. And yes, we can. But that would be by voting politicians into the right places that we trust that can enact policies and regulations and restrictions on the companies that are producing all of this pollution. I see an argument thrown that, it's because we as consumers are demanding products that end up creating a lot of byproduct pollution, like plastics, for instance. I accept that there's some merit to that argument, but I would make the counter argument that companies are choosing to go with less green alternatives because they're cheaper and easier to do. And when they've already got the production factory set up to be producing their plastics or whatever they're manufacturing a certain way, it would cost them, a good chunk of money to switch over to any other different type of material that would benefit us in taking care of our planet. When we have these big movements and we sway public perception to the idea that we ourselves can make the impact by picking up trash, by donating to these charities so that they can provide a truly next to nothing impact on our global standing pollution, we're ignoring the main contributors. And it's not just like main contributors, it's like pretty much all of it. And we're aware that MrBeast knew about how insignificant of an impact Team C's, for instance, actually had on what was going on.
It's not necessarily about the 30 million pounds, it's about the inspiration, it's about the positive net influence of people coming together and demonstrating something powerful, so.
Yep. And just showing that people care, honestly.
Yeah. If he already knows that these movements aren't doing something good, then we're only left with the fact that It looks good for PR. And it does. And he kept up a pretty good facade for quite a few years. And here I am, absolutely milking everything coming out in regard to MrBeast. And to be clear, I'm not making the case that Mark Rober or all of these other big content creators that work together on these efforts were doing it in bad faith. Obviously, they're all getting a really good public perception out of it because it is a moral good to protect the planet that we live on. But pulling in all of their audiences, especially when a lot of these people are looked up to by, like, children, for instance, it ends up setting the perception that we can make a difference in what we do in our daily lives as opposed to how we need to vote and the policies, like I said, that need to get enacted and restrictions that need to be in place to stop the main polluters. I'm repeating myself and I don't mean to. I don't want to give off like a conspiracy theory vibe or anything, but there are a lot of reasons that these big companies like Coca-Cola, for instance, in regard to, plastic pollution, why these companies would benefit from even donating to charities that are doing these things to get them good PR and make it seem like they're making an active effort in helping the pollution when companies like that are the main reasons that we're suffering. And just to cover my bases, I'm not knocking anybody that donated or helped out in these. Everyone that has, contributed their own time or their own money into working on these movements was doing it with the best intentions. And for a long time, that's the group that I was a part of. Up until the Save the Turtles movement, when I got my first paper straw, as soon as I felt that get soggy in my cup, that's when I started doing the research. Make your own conclusions, but as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to trying to make an impact, the power that rests on our shoulders as individuals to reduce global pollution relies on our ability to look more into these big companies that have been skirting around this, to look into what restrictions actually need to happen, and to actually have that conversation and publicly recognize the main contributors to these issues. But that's it for the video. Let's get into the members. I unfortunately don't have it in me to do a silly voice this time, but put it in the comments, you guys. Let me know what you want to hear, and I will do my damn best to do it for the next one. Special thank you to Forkstick, River Rocks, Seasonal, Persona Normal, Zakia, Weird Wonders, Not Ninja _S, Porkin BR, WinVR, Psych Xander, Case Blue, Lego Golden Frieza, Spacebar Too Loud, Fammy, LDG, #FreeTheNet, Noah Brown, Naomi Jimenez, Sundasphere, Frosty, Tommy C's Cat, Eric Hatful, Captain Spud, Orange Cat Pianist, Emp40, PB Whitkay, Bib Jim, Alex the Sandog, Rain the Once, Yesamo, Let's Talk, Basically Bricks, Cooking with Silence, Logan, Kate Munster, Kawhi Chan GD, Quintio's Brother, Duck Astley, Mr. Wu, Owen Murnane, Jackson Dutton, Nost ABI, Saya Sneaka, For All Yarn Kind, Esme Smiley Face, Ogie's JK, 4Ife, Ionut, Titanium Sid, Kate's Mom, Bosu, and Raven Rio 755, or as we like to call her, my mom. I can't thank you guys for not only liking my content, but going so far as to support me in making this a full-time career. This is my dream, and you guys are the reason that I'll be able to do this full-time. So thank you. I'll see you guys later. Adios. Bye-bye.